The garden soil is the foundation for your plant's growth and the high yield that you get from your plants. So here's the problem. 99% of us have the wrong type of soil in our yards, and this affects the plant's growth. So the native yard soil either has too much clay or too much sand, and it definitely has weed seeds. So after a decade of gardening in the wrong type of soil, I learned how to make my own soil from scratch and was able to bypass the native soil, and this made all the difference in the world to how my plants grew and how much produce that they made. Now, growing the plants in the soil that they like made the garden flourish like it never had before. So in order for the vegetable plants to thrive, we must have soil that is balanced between clay and sand, and the soil needs to have organic matter. So organic matter in the soil is the secret sauce that the plants love. So most soils don't have enough organic matter, and organic matter provides a home for the microbes and the nutrients for the plants. Now ideally for vegetable plants you want at least 6% organic matter. I like to use closer to 30%. I don't use any of the soil that's in my yard, it's pure clay. So instead I create the perfect soil for the plants to grow in. And when you have the soil that your plants like to grow in, magic can happen in your garden. So this is how I make gardening super productive, weed-free, and easy. Now the soil that I want to create for my plants is a sandy loam. A soil with too much sand can cause the roots to get too dry, and this can damage the roots. A clay soil can hold too much water, and this can drown the roots by depriving the roots of oxygen. So I've learned how to make my own soil for the containers. I have different recipes for different types of gardens. So for containers, I mix 1 part sand or porous material. Any kind of sand will do except salty beach sand. Also perlite and vermiculite work really well for the porous material. Next, I mix 1 part of loam, which I use to replace the clay. So for the loam, I can use peat moss or coconut coir. Then the last part is compost or worm castings. So all 3 parts are measured by volume and not weight. And if you use your native soil in your containers and it's not balanced right, you've just moved the problem up 12 inches into a container and have not solved the problem. Now, for my container garden, I will create the perfect soil that the plants will love, and I'm going to make it on the lighter side so I can still move my containers around a bit. So for my sandy ingredient, I will choose perlite. It is a volcanic rock that is light and porous. For my loam, I will choose peat moss. It's a bit cheaper than the coconut coir. Now for my compost, I'm going to make compost on the farm to use in my garden. Now if you need to buy compost, there's a link to my compost video that will show you kind of where to look for good compost and how to source it. That link is in the description below. And if you want to use worm castings, there's also a link in the description below the video that you can go and find some really good worm castings. So I mix the ingredients together. So I got 1 part sandy something, 1 part loam something, and then 1 part compost. And then I use 1/2 part water. So if you use a 5-gallon bucket to measure your parts, you're going to use 2.5 gallons of water in the mix. Now if you want to make bigger volumes, you can use a cement mixer. It does a great job of mixing. Otherwise you can use a tarp and put all your ingredients in the center and just keep folding it over and over, and that will mix your ingredients. Or you can just use a bucket and a shovel. So what about the cost? Yes, it will cost a little bit more to make the perfect soil for your plants, but the plants are going to repay you with a lot of produce. You're going to get higher yields. Also, you can use the soil over and over again, and the price of the soil can be prorated over time. I have some soil that's 30 years old, we're still using it. Now, if you don't have much money to invest in great soil, just start small instead of skimping on the ingredients. And one last advantage to making your own soil is there will be very few weed seeds in the mix, so you're not going to have to weed your containers very much. If you'd like to learn more about how to create the perfect soil that the plants like, you can get our soil guide. We offer it with the gifts that we give out when you sponsor the High Performance Garden Show. So for about the same price as a fancy cup of coffee, you can sponsor the show, help other people around the world learn how to grow a high-performance garden, and get the soil guide. So here's a link to sponsor the show, and this is where you get the soil guide. So go to thelivingfarm.org/high-performance-garden-show, scroll down the page to get to the sponsor section, and that's where you can sponsor the show and get the soil guide. I will put the link in the description below the video if you need to find it there.